Hi, this is Dave, and before we get to the show, I wanted to ask you a favor. One of our goals this year is to grow the show so that What Does Star Wars Mean to You reaches more listeners. And that's where we're asking you for help. And it's really easy. Wherever you listen to us, please hit that subscribe button. If you're liking the show, give us a 5-star rating and review on the platform you listen to us. We make a lot of fun of the algorithm and the smash that button thing, but it really does help us get noticed by new fans. And if you want to join in on the conversation, find us on social at Star Wars Mean to You. That's Star Wars Mean, the number 2 in the letter U. Now, let's chat some Star Wars.
Every time I'm in a serious situation in my life, I always imagine there's a Salacious Crumb on my shoulder just laughing about it.
Hello there, this is Dave and you're listening to What Does Star Wars Mean to You, the show where we talk to all kinds of fans of Star Wars. From industry insiders to indie artists, from mega collectors to obsessive mythologists, to find out how Star Wars impacted their life. Here's the thing, there's a lot of ways to look at Star Wars and it's all from a certain point of view, and that point of view is yours. Now, I've always loved hearing people's passionate points of view on Star Wars because, for me, it reveals new ways of looking at the franchise. Also, let's just face it, it's fun to talk Star Wars. My guest today is a stand-up comic, and you can see his 1-hour live special aptly called The Unspecial Comedy Special on Amazon, and listen to it wherever you stream comedy. And you can hear him every weekday as the co-host to the Ralph Report podcast, where he's known as the Sheriff of Ghost Town, the Mayor of Myrtle Beach, and most of all, the Star Wars-themed name, Odie Gahuff. And that's because he's been a Star Wars fan his entire life. Please give a warm hello there to Eddie Pence.
Hey, guys. Hey, everybody. Hello there.
Hello
How
there.
am I supposed to say hello there?
Well, usually the rejoinder is General Kenobi.
Hello there.
Are you ready to share with the world what Star Wars means to you?
I am absolutely. It's about time because I've never really done it before. It's been such a well-kept secret.
A lot of people I talk to have that problem. No one knows that they're a Star Wars fan.
There's other ones like us out there? No.
There's a couple, if you look real hard. I like to start with a segment I call 5 with the Force. This is just 5 basic questions I ask all my guests, just to get your kind of Star Wars baseline.
Sure.
So to start, which Star Wars movie is your go-to favorite?
Empire. I know that's the cliche. Everyone, it's the best one or whatever. But when I was a child, it was probably Return of the Jedi, just because when you're under 10, that's the greatest movie of all time because the good guys win, right?
Yeah.
But I think once I started getting a little bit older, my movie taste started changing a little bit. I got a little more refined, if I have refined movie taste. Empire really struck it. Just the depth of that movie and the layers and just the whole Dagobah scene with Luke knocking the head off Vader and he's under, just everything in that movie is just so well done.
It's almost like when you're a kid and you see Star Wars in 77 or grow up with it between 77 and 80 and then see Empire Strikes Back, it's like it matures a little bit with you because as you grew older, the tone of that movie is a little older and asks a little bit more of the viewer. And I think that's an amazing aspect.
Like I saw Star Wars the first time in 79 when Lucas did the re-release before, because I was born in 74, 77 I was too young to go to a movie. I saw it in 79 is where I first saw it. So then I saw Empire Strikes Back in the theater in 1980, and I vividly remember sitting there in the Hoth scene and seeing all of the snow speeders flying by, and I'm like, this is the greatest scene I've ever seen in my life. Because it looked like, I know when you watch the movie now, you're like, oh, there's like 6 snow speeders. But when you were a kid and you like back, it felt like there was 1,000 snow speeders on the Hoth.
Yeah.
And then I was in the theater for that original experience of I Am Your Father.
Yeah.
And I felt the collective, like the groan, like, oh, what? In the theater. And that was like my first memory of anything like that, of a collective group in a theater, like having the same emotion at the same time. It was amazing.
Yeah, it must have been like a nervous rejection. Like, no. You feel like Mark Hamill in that scene.
Well, I just remember everyone's like, what? And then like, it was just you could feel the numbness in the audience from that moment until the movie ended. It was just like, what? And then we were all walking out. And I remember I'm a little kid. I was like 6, 7 years old at the time. I just remember everybody walking by me just going, no, 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 no. It was there's never been anything like it in a movie experience I've ever had.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Question number 2. I have to roll 1d6 for this. Let's see. 2. Who is your favorite minor character? And it can be from any of the movie.
Minor character.
I know that's
a good one. That's a good, because I've always, for some reason, Salacious Crumb has always made me laugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know, he might be such a small character. He's not even a minor character. I don't even know if you consider him a minor character, but he finds everything funny, and I just adore him because whatever, he's just sitting there basically nestled into Jabba the Hutt's butthole the whole time. And he's just he sees Princess Leia's being like Me Too'd by Jabba, and he's laughing his ass off, and they're getting ready to throw him in the Sarlacc pit, and he's laughing his ass. It was just he kills me. Every time I'm in a serious situation in my life, I always imagine there's a Salacious Crumb on my shoulder just laughing about it.
That's a good philosophy. I mean, it's just like you should do a self-help book as like getting by with Salacious Crumb.
Because that's what it is. It's just like, okay, no matter how bad things are, there's someone that's going to be laughing at the situation you're in, and that's Salacious Crumb.
What is your favorite line to quote?
He's more machine now than man. Twisted and evil. Yeah. Anytime someone's grumpy or angry, I just always like, if I'm standing next to someone says something like they're angry, I just look over like, he's more machine now than man. Twisted and evil. I know that one just tickles me when people, it's just hilarious. If someone is in a room and they're just being grumpy and they leave, and you just lean over the guy next to you and just go, he's more machine now than man. It always works.
Yeah, I can see how that would always work. And it's a really good impression, which leads into my next question. Can you do any Star Wars impressions or impersonations?
Misa no having no boomba. There you go. Moi.
Right to Jar Jar.
Misa no having no boomba. That's about it.
and that's the first Jar Jar impression I've had. 35 records. First Jar Jar, I think. Besides the movies, what is your favorite Star Wars content? This could be a TV show, comic book, a novel, a game, really anything.
Oh, God. That's tough because there's been so much stuff. Anything outside of the films, you're saying? Anything outside of the films. I guess before Disney got a hold of Star Wars, it would have been the Heir to the Empire trilogy, the Timothy Zahn books. Those were great. I love those. I remember reading those right when they came out. I was enthralled with them. I loved Thrawn. But I guess since Disney took over, probably Star Wars Rebels.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Probably Rebels. I mean, to me, like, I loved Clone Wars, but there is some misses in the 7 or 8 seasons there. There's like that whole thing with the droids and the void. I could have done without those 3 episodes. Yeah. But I would say Star Wars Rebels from beginning to end, it's a solid 4 seasons. Like, it is, they don't miss much in that.
It really captures the core essence of what the original trilogy had, while still feeling new and pushing the story, like the overall mythology of Star Wars forward. It's amazing.
Especially that, I would say, the second half or the last 3 episodes of season 2, the whole Darth Maul thing with Ezra Bridger when Kanan gets blind. Like, that is some of the best Star Wars writing ever.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, if you want to rank shows as far as just writing goes, I think Andor is probably the best written Star Wars ever. And I think Star Wars, that season 2 of Star Wars Rebels is right there, right underneath Andor, as far as the written story goes.
It's just spectacular storytelling.
Yeah.
And so we got your kind of Star Wars baseline. What can you take me through the first time you saw Star Wars? What that experience was like? Okay. What you remember of it?
I remember vaguely because, like I said, I mentioned earlier that I didn't see it in _77 when it came out because I was like 3. I remember my mom took myself, my brother, who was a year and a half younger than me, and my cousin. She was 5 years older than me. Well, you got to specify. So she was 5 years older than me. So she wasn't into this. I was 79, so I was 5 years old. So she was 10. Girls at 10 years old were not into Star Wars in 1979. They just weren't. It's not like today when people, but back then, I remember we went during like a matinee. I'd heard about Star Wars in kindergarten. My mom took me and we're watching it. And I remember initially being frightened because the cantina scene scared the crap out of me. when I was
Really?
I was like behind the seat in the movie. Like I was leaning forward because I was into the movie. But as soon as we went in the cantina scene, that one thing pops up and starts looking around.
Yeah.
That thing. I hid behind. I remember vividly hiding behind the seat, and I was just starting to get used to it, and then Chewbacca appeared, and I was just terrified of Chewbacca. Terrified of Chewbacca.
But
and anytime he was on the screen, I was looking through my hands every time.
do you remember what it was? Was it just that it was a huge hairy beast?
I think it was the human eyes in the furry face freaked me out. There
Yeah.
wasn't like alien black eyes or anything like that. It was just like those blue human eyes. And I'm like, this is really weird. And it just something about it just set me off as a child. But I remember watching the movie, and then we got to the end, and the first time I was ever this might be my first theater memory ever, is this Star Wars movie. I don't remember going to a movie before this. This may have been my first time in a theater. The Han rescue scene at the end when he's coming down, he's like, "Oh, great shot, kid. Now let's, let's blow this thing and go home," or whatever. He knocks Darth Vader into space or whatever, and he does the Yahoo or whatever, and the Millennium Falcon's flying out of space, and everyone you didn't see that coming. You thought Han was long gone with his fortune. Especially like maybe now as a more experienced film goer, I would okay, Han's probably coming. They're setting this up for him to come back and save the day. But as a child, you thought Han was gone. He's done. And then you see him flying, and there's that sun behind the Millennium Falcon, and the whole audience, I remember just cheering. I was like, whoa. And that was like the first audience pop I'd ever heard for a movie. And so that stuck with me, and that made me a Han Solo fan more than a Luke fan.
I totally see that. I mean, Luke was like the brother you have that's always good.
Yeah.
And Han was like the brother you had that you wanted to be like.
He's the guy who had the T-Bird, and you wanted to like, can you take me out tonight? Can you drive me around, please?
Now, after seeing Star Wars, did you get over your Chewbacca fear? Did that?
Yeah, I think. Well, the funny thing about that movie is I loved it so much. My mom, because this was back when you could sit in a movie theater, and if you sat there long enough, they would just play the movie again.
Yeah.
This was like 1979. They didn't care. They played it every time the movie started. They didn't come in and make sure you weren't supposed to be in there. Anything. So I was in love with this movie, and so was my brother. And we were like, "Can we stay, Mom? Can we stay?" And we were like, "Yeah." And my mom was like, "Okay, okay." But my cousin was pissed. She did not want to sit through this movie a second time, and so she sat in the corner and pouted. But we watched it literally a second time right after the first time we saw it. We just stayed through and watched it. And the second time around, I was over the Chewbacca fear because I knew what to expect now because I'd never seen Chewbacca. That was the first time. I don't remember the trailer for Star Wars. I just remember you go see Star Wars. So the second time I saw it, which was right after the first time I saw it, I was over the Chewbacca fear.
That's amazing. That's so spectacular. How did Star Wars affect your day-to-day life after that? Like, for one thing, you mentioned that was the first audience pop, which is I think more of a comedy expression to describe an audience reacting to what's going on in front of them. But did that audience pop inspire you at all? Did the movie inspire you at all to get into show business?
After seeing Star Wars and seeing how an audience can respond, I mean, I was only 5, 6 years old, but seeing like that stuck with me, just seeing that an audience, and I'm a stand-up comedian now, so I'm well aware of the psychology of the audience and how you treat the audience, at least from a performer's perspective. A lot of times you treat the audience, I know it's made up of a bunch of individuals, but you look at the audience as a living organism. Like this is you versus them, or you with it. It's like as Obi-Wan tells Boss Nass, it's a symbiotic relationship. What affects me affects you, and what affects you affects me. So you have to treat that when you go on stage, you treat the audience the same way. Like if I'm having a good day, it's going to affect how they're feeling about me, and then how they're feeling about me is going to affect me, how I'm feeling about myself, which will in turn affect how I feel about them. So it's whole cyclical symbiotic relationship. And and watching Star Wars, I remember that vivid moment when the audience popped when Han Solo came to save the day. I'm like, oh, there's a group mind around. People react to certain stimuli or certain things in storytelling or sporting events or whatever it is. When there's a group there's that group mind of like just that non-planned simultaneous reaction to something. And that's always fascinated me, whether it's been with watching sports or films or stand-up comedy, to be able to create something or do something in that moment that creates almost an instantaneous, simultaneous response from everyone. It's fascinating.
It is, and in the sports world, it's almost like it's the wave. Like the physical expression of this group mind is the wave. Now, when as a kid you had all these figures, would you use your toys to tell your own Star Wars stories? Did you recreate the stories from
all the time? Like I never really recreated the actual storylines. I would make up my own stories. The first Star Wars toy I ever got was Luke Sandspeeder.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember we had like this patio in my backyard, this concrete patio. And if you remember at the time, it had like a little gear shift between the two seats where it would if you pull it back, it would lower the wheels down and then it would roll. Right. So it almost looked like it's gliding across. Yeah. Kinda.
I always broke that damn thing off. It like,
oh, dude, I destroyed that. I destroyed at least 2 X-Wings. Because what I would do is my brother and I would chase him around the backyard, and he would be the TIE fighter and I'd be the X-Wing, and we'd fly around the tree, and I would just smash the thing into the tree and take the wings off. I'm like, and my mom was like, I'm not buying any more of these. I destroyed them. I was so rough with them. I remember I took Yoda when I've got a Yoda with the little cloth cape that he had, and for some reason I wrapped him in silly putty. I don't know why. I think that was my version of carbonite. I was trying to recreate carbonite.
Yes.
And I was like, the Empire captured Yoda, so we're going to put him in carbonite. So I wrapped him in putty, and I was trying to like press it so you could see the imprint of him under the putty. But I did all that, and I was trying to take him out of the putty, and of course the cloth jacket was just ruined with all the putty.
Yeah. That doesn't come out.
No, it doesn't come out. So I ruined that. Yeah, I never got another Yoda. So my Yoda from then on out was just like little naked Yoda. He just had his little.
I think there's a lot of kids with little naked Yoda because that thing was.
It's too much responsibility to give a child a cloth clothes for their action figures. It's too much responsibility.
It really is. So, like you mentioned that you read the Thrawn trilogy, and that was like a lot of people call the dark times, where like between 83 and about 97 when the re-release came out, there was like not much Star Wars.
There was nothing. We had, what was the one they made? Not Heir to the Empire. What was the one with the Black Sun trading the company?
Oh yeah,
it was supposed to take place between Empire and Jedi, where they actually made the book, a video game, a soundtrack, action figure. They did everything but a movie.
Shadows of the Empire.
Shadows of the Empire.
I had all of that stuff. I got the soundtrack, the action figures. I went into Target one day and they had just loaded them up, and I was like, right into my cart and walked out with like 20 action figures.
Prince Zizor was his name. Prince Zizor
Prince Zizor. Did you carry your Star Wars fandom like on your sleeve during that time, or did it kind of go to sleep in you and then come back out when like Thrawn and then?
No, I was always a pretty vocal Star Wars fan. There just wasn't much to talk about with anybody. Like no one. At that age, because like 83, I think I was finishing up 3rd grade, and then there was really nothing until, like you said, the 97, the re-releases. I was out of college, so that entire time there was no real Star Wars to talk about. So I would watch. Oh, my dog's barking. Sorry, Stanley.
That's okay.
So there was nothing to discuss. I would still watch it. I would still talk about it. And if I would have friends over and they're like, "Oh, you want to watch Star Wars?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's watch Star Wars." Like I still watched it, but there was no reason to talk about it. So it was hard to like wear it on your sleeve outside of just having the random T-shirt or something,
which were so hard to find. Like
it was non-existent. There was non-existent Star Wars from literally like, I know they did the Power of the Force line like in 85 where they tried to reboot a lot of the figures. So that was like the last like sort of
hurrah
swing they took at Star Wars until like 97. And it was just, there was nothing. It was just, I mean, like I said, you had the Heir of the Empire books in 93-ish, 93, 92, 93. So that's sort of like got me something interested to talk about. I started like, "Hey, you guys should read these books." I'm like, "I'm not reading a Star Wars book. We're in high school." But I was like, "These are great." But that was really it. There was nothing to talk about. So you couldn't wear it on your sleeve because there was no reason to wear it on your sleeve in a way. I wasn't ashamed of it. I just didn't, there was no occasion to bring it up.
I remember reading the second book in college of the Thrawn trilogy. It must have been 92 or 93. And I had it in the hallway, and I was waiting outside of the bathroom door, And this other guy walks by and goes, "Nerd," and slaps the book out of my hand. And it was like all the powerlessness I felt in all my life in that one moment.
Oh man, sorry about that. That's terrible.
It's okay.
Right. I mean, because Star Wars, you should bring people together with it, and that shouldn't drive us apart.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what was your reaction when you saw the re-release, the special editions?
Again, I was so excited when those came out because we hadn't seen Star Wars on the big screen since '83. So I was initially very excited to go see them, and I didn't mind, like, there's some stuff about it that didn't bother me. Like, I didn't mind the New Hope. I didn't mind him tooling around with Tatooine. Whatever, you want to add some monsters and aliens, that's fine. I wasn't a huge fan. I was excited when I first heard they were gonna, because I'd always seen that deleted scene of that guy playing Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah,
that scene that was supposed to be in the film. So I was excited.
Guy in the fur outfit.
Yes, because right? They always showed that scene in all those documentaries about Star Wars, and you're like, oh, they're going to put that in. Oh, they're going to do a CGI job, and I'm like, I was a little worried because I was excited, but at the same time, I was like, I don't know how they're going to do it. And I saw, I'm like, okay, I like the idea that this scene is in the story because it helps flesh out Han's story a little bit more.
Yeah,
I mean, at the time, the CGI wasn't where it needed to be, and it's just not well executed. I guess by their standards, it was, but today you look at it, you're like, this is just hard to watch.
Yeah. I liked that they cleaned up some of the effects.
Yeah.
But what I found was I had seen the movie so many times that I knew it like beat for beat. And every time it wasn't like the beat I was expecting, it would throw me off a little bit.
Yeah.
No,
I get that. You're like, this says, okay, this false, all this feels off. Yeah. No, I totally I get it. And then Empire, though, like Empire, there wasn't, I know he flipped out Palpatine. He made a different Palpatine. There was no real change. Like you said, they cleaned up a lot of the effects in the snow battle because the green screen, blue screen technology wasn't where it needed to be, which that was fine. I didn't like what they did with Cloud City. It just looked, when they put inside Cloud City, I like the idea of them running around these confined tunnels and not being able to see outside. It kind of added to the confusion and the panic of the moment to me.
Yes,
but
that's true.
So I didn't really care for that. You know, like, again, I was watching Star Wars on the big screen, so I didn't care that much. In the end, I didn't care that much. I was like, whatever.
Now, I was watching your unspecial comedy special the other night. It has some, of course, it has some Star Wars bits in it.
Yes.
How does Star Wars comedy go over well with crowds in general, do you think? For me, I will laugh at anything. So
I rarely open with it. Like, because you don't know what's in the crowd, and like if you come up and you just start doing Star Wars jokes, most of the time the crowd's going to be like, okay, well, this guy's not for me, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it depends on the show. If you're doing like a comic book themed or like a nerd type show, go in and just hit them hard with Star Wars, and that's fine. But if you're just doing a regular club set, I always find, because I always want to try to tell those Star Wars jokes because it's who I am. It's part of me, and part of comedy is talking about yourself. So I always find it. Don't put it at the beginning, no matter what it is or how good it is. Tuck it in the middle somewhere, and always make it relatable back to the human experience somehow, some way. Take whatever you're trying to pick apart in Star Wars, and don't just try to make fun or poke fun at something that happened. Make it relatable to a human experience we all can deal with, right? Like, I have that Star Wars joke in the Unspecial where I talk about the deck officer and Han Solo is getting ready to go look for Luke, and the deck officer says, you know, his tauntaun froze for your tauntaun will freeze before he reaches the first marker, and Solo looks back at him, he's like, I'll see you in hell, and rides off. And then so all I did was just take the human experience of like, oh my God, everyone's had this dickhead boss that just yells at them for no reason. How does that deck officer react to that? Because we all have those feelings. So you wait for the guy to leave the room and then you start talking shit about him, right? Like,
right.
So if you can relate it back, and then I did the other one about Han being lowered down and he says, I love you. And Leia's like, I know. I'm like, if I did that, my wife, and I did this whole bit about if I tried to do that on my deathbed and my wife just freaks out and brings me back to life just so she can kill me. But it's all about relating it back to those common human experiences we all have. And then people can relate to it. So as long as you make the Star Wars jokes relatable, even if you don't have a bunch of people in the crowd that have seen Star Wars, if you do a good enough job sort of setting the scene up at the beginning to let them know what happened in the scene, and then turn it back onto yourself and, you know, the whole human experience, then you can, even for the non-Star Wars fans, you can get a good reaction from them.
Now, if there is a strong reaction, will you pile Star Wars jokes behind it? Or if there's some kind of tell from the audience that's like, you know what, these guys, even though I'm not at Comic-Con, I'm in New York City, I feel like these guys are going to sway towards sci-fi nerdom. Will you then pivot and lean into the Star Wars a little bit?
A little bit more. I might embellish a little bit more. I might like, oh, I have this other idea. I was thinking about doing a Star Wars joke. I'm going to drop that right now and see how it goes over here. Stuff like that. Or I have other nerdy stuff. I have stuff about Indiana Jones, and I'll just start going into that other stuff. But again, like all of it, even if it is a super nerdy Comic-Con crowd, you'll get the laughs off just talking about the scene in the movie. But to really get a good reaction from everybody and have everybody remember that bit, you have to tie it back into your own personal experience and the experiences we all can relate to. Otherwise, you're just sitting there doing a Mystery Science Theater 3000 bit. You're just sort of commenting on the movie, which is funny, but at the same time, a stand-up crowd, a stand-up audience, stand-up comedy audience isn't going to remember that.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I get that. Now I'm looking at you, and I know people can't see what's behind you, but it's this great mural of what I said looks like the Battle of Naboo.
It does look like Naboo, yes.
What is that mural, and why did you paint it?
My son was when he was born, my wife had the duty of giving birth to the child. So I was then given the responsibility of setting up the nursery for the child. So she was taking care of all the pre-birth stuff, and I was responsible for the afterbirth.
The afterbirth?
Poor choice of words. So what I did is I painted all four walls in his bedroom to look like an outdoor scene. There's mountains and grass and fields and a lake and clouds and all that stuff. So it's a very, we wanted to give the kid a sense of just like, we live in a city. So I wanted to feel like, okay, well, at least his bedroom feels like he's in the country, like he's got some nature around. So that's what he did. And then as he got older, I would just add to the mural, like he's got into Sesame Street. So I put up Cookie Monster and Big Bird, and he got into Curious George, and I painted Curious George on the wall and Thomas the Train. So there's just like, I've always added these things to it. Now the room is just filled with Star Wars Lego. So that's his choice.
I do like the integration of like the Sesame Street crew. And then I don't remember the names of the prequel fighters, but you can see some of the prequel fighters there as well. But the troop transports, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Now, we ran out of room, so I had to hang all the spaceships from the ceiling. So we just don't have enough shelf space for everything else.
Obviously, you actively tried to get your son into Star Wars. How did it take?
Okay. Well, that was my mission from the moment I knew I was having a son. I was like, okay, I can pass on this curse. So he was born, and I would get him like Star Wars sheets. I got him like these little Star Wars like play school action figures. I got him like one of those toy lightsabers. And the first year, his first Halloween, I think he was like 3 or 4. The first year he was going trick or treat. I bought a Jedi costume, right? Like a full, like great little Jedi costume. And he wanted to be an orange crayon. So that won out. The kid dresses what he wants to dress like. So he became orange crayon. And I was a little dejected because this was a great Jedi costume. And he just didn't. I would show it to him, but he didn't super take to it. Like he didn't like love it the way I did. But again, he was like, I think 4 years old, 3 or 4 years old. And so I was trying. And one day I'm at work and my wife calls me, and she'd taken him to Costco, and they were playing A New Hope on one of the big TVs at Costco. And she was trying to get by it. And I guess he just put his hands down he was in the shopping cart, and he just put his hands down on the table and wouldn't let my wife move the car. And he was just sitting there staring at the Death Star prison break scene in A New Hope. And she took a picture and she sent it to me of him just sitting there staring at this 55-inch TV with Star Wars on it. And she's like, well, it finally happened. And I was like, yes, yes. So she had to sit there and watch A New Hope in Costco with him. And I guess it's a timing thing. I guess it just has to hit you at the right time or something. Like I was trying to drop all these like, here, try this, or this Star Wars here's this toy. And he played with it, but he didn't love it. And then he saw that Star Wars in Costco and was immediately hooked. And now he's a bigger fan than I am.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
How did you roll out the different movies to him? Did
I go prequels first or sequels?
Obviously, he discovered A New Hope.
Right. Well, it was weird. Like I had this whole grand plan of like when I was younger, like, oh, if I have a kid someday, I'm going to show. He's got to see the original trilogy first because you have to be surprised by the Vader turn,
Yeah.
and then I'll show him the prequels. But the way it worked out was he started watching New Hope, and then he got so massively into Star Wars. So he started watching all these Lego Star Wars shows. Like Lego put out a bunch of like the Yoda Chronicles and Droid Tales. And there was a lot of stuff that took place sort of around the original trilogy and in the prequels. And so he started watching those. And I couldn't get him to watch the movies. He wanted to watch the Lego Star Wars stuff. And they just give it all away in there. Like you find out Anakin is Vader. Like, so at that point, it was just all like, well, there's no point in trying to surprise him with Empire Strikes Back. Right. So he watched that stuff and he kind of would ask me questions. So I just told him who was who and what was what. And then we eventually he watched the original trilogy. Return of the Jedi is his favorite. We watched the prequels. It took him a while to get into Revenge of the Sith because the ending is so dark, even for little kids. Watching someone burn is a dark thing.
It's so dark.
It's so dark. So it took him a while to get into that, but he got into it, and Return of the Jedi is still his favorite. We had this one thing that really got me. I think he was like 6 or 7. It was the first time he'd watched Return of the Jedi. And it's the scene where Vader turns and saves Luke, right? The Emperor's electrocuting him with the Force lightning, and you see Vader's doing this look. And I don't know why Lucas ever decided to put the no in there because it just ruins the moment. Because Vader in a mask is telling you every emotion on this on this motionless mask. You're reading every emotion that's going through him. You don't need the no. That's my biggest complaint. That's worse than Han shot first. That's worse than that whole debacle. Vader yelling no is so unnecessary because that's such a perfect scene. So he's watching that scene and he sees Vader do this and he goes and Vader turns and he picks up the Emperor and throws him over the shaft. And Colton starts crying. He's like 6 or 7. He starts crying. He's like, because he got the emotion of the moment of this dad sacrificing everything, sacrificing himself for his son. And it hit my 7-year-old boy at the time. And he's like, what? And he understood what happened, but he couldn't verbalize it perfectly. So he's like, what happened? What happened? What's going on? I'm like, he's sacrificing himself to save his son. His son is the most important thing to him. That's the one thing that turns him back to the good side is the love of his son. And then he just lost it. Because it shows you how emotional that scene is. It's such a great scene.
It's a fantastic scene, and everything about it drives that emotion. Just when you were describing, I always get chills when I see Vader looking from Luke to the Emperor and back to Luke again. Because you're right. I've never thought about this before, but it's a sterile, still mask, and there's nothing there, and it has everything.
It's got everything. It doesn't need the no, and if you talk about the special editions, that's the one thing outside of the Ewok song being kicked off, Vader yelling no, because it doesn't need it. And it's so perfect without it.
Yes, totally agree. I think maybe we should find other movies like Citizen Kane. Like, where can we put a no in Citizen Kane?
Like, just have him go, Rosebud, my sled.
Yeah.
Oh, that ruined it.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I'm like, Lucas, like, I love you. You're a brilliant man. You gave us all this stuff, but that's filmmaking 101 right there.
Yeah.
That move right there. If you can show it and not tell it, that's filmmaking. And you had to, for some reason, tell us what you were already showing us, which made no sense.
What was your experience introducing, like being able to experience the sequel trilogy for the first time with your son as well?
That was great because I was excited about that because that was the first time we were going to experience Star Wars together for the first time in a big screen, right? And me not having to, but he had this thing because he was still sort of young. I guess he was 7, 8 years old when Force Awakens came out, so he would still want me to go to the movie first and then take him the second time just so he wasn't too scared. I remember we saw Force Awakens the first time. He saw it with me. He sat on my lap because it's because it's so much. It's coming at you. It's so big. It's bigger than what you're used to. So he was kind of a little afraid, and he was terrified at the Han Solo Kylo Ren scene because he knew he wanted me to tell him what was going to happen. And I was like, well, this is what's going to happen, right? So he was terrified at that one. He got a little weepy at that one when Han Solo got it. And then I took him to Last Jedi, and Luke was his favorite character, right? Luke's his favorite. So he was like, "Does Luke die in this? Does Luke die in this?" And I'm like, "Well," and then he was still so young at the time. I didn't want to go, "Yeah, Luke dies." I went like, "No, he becomes one with the Force." I wanted to, like, I was trying to ease the death scene for him a little bit, but he went to that one, and then we saw Rise of Skywalker together. That was the first one we saw where I didn't have to see it before him. We went and saw that one together, and he enjoyed. Like, he's always loved Star Wars, and the thing that always gets me about Colton and watching. I forget sometimes because you become an adult and you get a little jaded and cynical as being in your fandom of Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
And I was getting that way too for a while. And I remember I'm one of the few people, I guess I'm one of the people that likes Last Jedi. I enjoyed that movie. I thought it was a good movie. But when Solo came out, I remember I saw Solo opening night. I didn't take Colton. I went by myself, and I went with a friend, and we watched it. And after it was over, we were both kind of like, "Meh." I didn't hate it, but I was like, okay. Solo needed more to me. Anyway, at the time, that was the way I felt. And then I took Colton the next 2 days later. I took Colton to go see Solo. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, I didn't want to sit through it again. I was just like, okay, I'll watch it when it comes on streaming or whatever. And then he's sitting there, and I'm watching, I'm like, okay. And I look over at him sitting next to me, and he's like I was when I saw A New Hope, right? He's like leaning forward on the chair, and like the beginning scene, the speeder scene when him and I can't remember Kira are trying to get away, and he's sitting there, and he's like he's bobbing back and forth like he's driving the speeder, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, oh, this is how we're supposed to watch Star Wars, through a kid's eyes.
Yeah.
And then I was like, everything from that moment on, watching him sit there at Solo and just like watch and being fully immersed in this movie that I thought 2 days ago was just like, meh, okay. And he's like loving it. And I'm like, oh, that's right. This is how you're supposed to watch this. And then ever since then, everything's clicked on me. And I just love, like, whatever, just bring me more. Like, yeah, Book of Boba Fett has some issues. Obi-Wan had some issues. But all in all, just keep throwing it at me. I don't care. I'm from now on watching Star Wars through a kid's eyes, because that's the only way you can watch it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Because once you get jaded, why even bother? Because it's supposed to talk to the child in you, not to the adult.
And luckily, I had the physical representation of that as I was watching Solo, and it clicked with me. And I'm like, that's right. That's how you're supposed to enjoy these movies. If you ever get the opportunity to watch Star Wars in a room full of children, do it. It will change. It'll shift your perspective on what you've been doing.
Well, I remember seeing The Force Awakens and seeing like an 8 or 9-year-old girl dressed as Rey, like just so excited. And that totally changed my, like, I'd never had anything negative against Rey, but it made me see, I see why Rey is so important. And it's really, I love that moment where your perspective can change because you see it through someone else's eyes.
Right. Had there been a Rey in 1979, my cousin wouldn't have mind watching Star Wars twice.
Yeah.
Because there's importance to Rey, and I know a lot of negative Star Wars fans bash Rey, but there's an importance to that character that I don't think they fully grasp.
Absolutely. Speaking of which, in a sense, what are the top 3 elements that make Star Wars to you?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. It used to be the opening scroll, right? Like that used to be like, that was Star Wars. The 20th Century Fox fanfare, and then the scroll was Star Wars to me. Seeing the old Lucasfilm in green, and then the but that's not there anymore. That's all changed. So I guess now it would just, I mean, the music. It's always the music with Star Wars. Like that's the score to Star Wars, whether it's John Williams doing it or I can't think of the guy who did Mandalorian, but he put his own thumbprint on Star Wars.
Finnish or
Ludwig
Swedish.
Ludwig something. But
and not
it's the music.
But yes.
Yeah. But it's the music of it that always hits me, and just hitting those subtle John Williams notes here and there and different things that always draws me back. The second one is the fun element to it. Just like as dark as it can get sometimes, like, you know, and as heavy as it can get with like even Andor, when Andor is like the heaviest of Star Wars. There's got to be some light to it. There's got to be like some fun to it. That's why I was kind of missing, like, I wish they had K2SO in this first season of Andor just for a little, you know, comedic relief. Just I know what he's trying to do with Andor, and I love it and I appreciate it, but it's so heavy. So I guess the fun, the humor that's in Star Wars, whether it's Han Solo or K2SO or or Chopper, the humor of Star Wars. The third thing, let me see. Probably droids. Just every time I'm always like, okay, they've exhausted the droid. I don't know how they're going to come up with a new droid that's going to make me think, okay, and then right here with Ahsoka when they brought back what's his name, Huang or whatever I can't.
Yes.
Wong, whatever.
Wong.
Like,
Yeah.
I know he was in the Clone Wars, but I didn't even think. I barely. It doesn't register. And then they brought him back. I'm like, okay, well now I love this droid now.
Yeah, I don't know how many episodes he was in, but it wasn't a lot.
No, it wasn't a lot. It was enough for me to he looks familiar. I know he was there before, but I didn't get a sense of him. And now in Ahsoka, I'm like, oh, now I like this droid. It's just they're constantly reinventing the droid in Star Wars.
And then there was I forget his entire name, but Emo from Andor, which was a great droid in his own way.
Yeah.
And then there's Chopper. Yeah, you're right. It's like they do. It's not like they get, oh, here's another, here's a silver-plated C-3PO, and he's going to be a character.
Like you thought with R2, okay, they did the snarky droid. That's done.
Yeah,
but they did it. They upped it with K2SO and Chopper, and then Huang, or I can't remember. But it's like they keep reinventing the droid, and I don't know how they do it. But that's always been one of my favorite things. Whenever a new Star Wars property comes out, I'm like, okay, what droid's going to win me over this time?
Wow, I've never looked at it that way before, and you are spot on with that. We've talked a lot about your Star Wars memories, but this is one of the final questions I always ask. What is your favorite Star Wars memory?
Oh, let me see. I mean, it really honestly used to be God, either waiting in line for Return of the Jedi, just the anticipation I had, because back then you'd wait in these long ass lines. You didn't buy your movie seat. You had to just get in line early and wait and find a seat. I remember my parents getting off work. Yes. It was a Friday night, and I knew Return of the Jedi was coming out, and both my parents worked 9-to-5 jobs, and they came home and they got my brother and I in the car, and God bless them, they took us to a movie on Friday night, and we stood in that line for an hour and a half.
Wow.
And it wasn't even the movie. I mean, I love the movie, of course, but it was the anticipation of Return of the Jedi, I think might be my favorite Star Wars memory. Just standing in that line going, everything I love in my life is going to be answered in the next 2 hours. I'm going to have answers to everything that's important to me. So just the simplicity of being a child and being able to stand in that line and just be fully focused on this one event that's taking place and not other care in the world. So that's probably, waiting in line for Return of the Jedi is probably my favorite Star Wars memory.
Awesome. Now, my final question for you.
Yeah.
You go to Skywalker Ranch, and there at the gates, George Lucas greets you. What do you say to him?
Why'd you put no in the special edition? Why did you do that, dude? I would ask him if he's got any regrets for selling Star Wars. If he does regret selling it to Star Wars, to Disney. I've enjoyed what Disney's done with it. Like I said, give me more Star Wars. Just, I don't care. But I wonder if he watched those sequel trilogies and this isn't the direction I had planned. And I don't think watching what Filoni's doing now with, Rebels and then Ahsoka and what him and Favreau are doing with The Mandalorian and what he did with what's the other thing I'm trying to think of? The Bad Batch. What he's doing with all that stuff. It seems like Disney bought Star Wars, right? Kathleen Kennedy took over. She's like, okay, we got to hire a big director to do this movie. So they got J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams wrote this movie thinking he's only writing one, and he's going to hand it off to Ryan Johnson, and then he'll hand it off to Colin Trevorrow or whatever. And so I think they wrote that movie not thinking ahead. Just let's do Force Awakens. We'll make all the money. We'll just do a derivative a New Hope film, and that's what it will be. And then I think they did that, and people were like, okay, well, none of this, after that sequel trilogy was done, it just felt so disjointed. There was no plan. The prequels, for all their faults, there was a plan. George had a plan, and he stuck to it. Same with the original trilogy. You could see the story. This sequel trilogy just didn't have that cohesive plan. And I feel like what Filoni and Favreau are trying to do now, that they seem to have the reins of Star Wars, is they're trying to retcon a lot of stuff and try to fill in the blanks and get all this stuff in line to sort of make the sequel trilogy what it should have been. They're trying to make it feel so when Poe Dameron says somehow Palpatine's returned, everyone doesn't go, what? Right? What the hell? I'm well, people that read Heir to the Empire, we're not shocked by that because we know Palpatine cloned himself. That's not a shocker. But the majority of the people didn't read Heir to the Empire. So when they hear Poe go, Palpatine's Return, I was like, oh, come on, that's okay. You got yourself in a corner. Now you're just writing Palpatine back. So I think Filoni, knowing how Lucas thinks and being trained by him, is sort of trying to direct the ship and fill in all these blanks with Bad Batch and the cloning, and Mando with Grogu, and trying to get a force sensitive clone, and all this stuff is just leading up to sort of make Palpatine's return something that isn't so shocking to everybody. And I just would ask him, I'm like, I know this is a long way to get to this question, but just like, Lucas, would you have done it if you had to do over again? If you'd seen the sequel trilogy, would you have put something in the contract? Like, no, if we're selling it to you, Disney, I need Filoni to head it up. I need him to take it over because he knows my vision of this.
Yeah.
If he would have put more stipulations in the contract, like, okay, I'll sell it to you, but I have to write and direct the first one. Something like that, where he could put his thumbprint on that sequel trilogy and not make it seem so just out of left field with everything.
Or derivative of the original trilogy.
Right.
I think there's an aspect of George Lucas where he likes to push the envelope wherever he can.
Yeah.
And there's an aspect of fandom that just kind of wants things to be familiar.
Yes. Of course.
And those two things are hard to like merge together.
Yeah, they don't reconcile very well together. Yeah.
I think it's interesting that I feel Clone Wars did a lot of that work for the prequel trilogy as well.
Yes,
like Clone Wars kind of fills in that emotional gap that the prequels may have been missing.
Yeah.
And I think you're right that Filoni is trying to do that again with the
sequel trilogy.
The sequel trilogy. And mostly I'm here for it.
Oh, me too. Like, give me all of it, man.
Give me all the Star Wars. Like, put it into the fire hydrant, hook up the fire hose, and spray me with Star Wars. Eddie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Telling me your Star Wars story. I really loved it. I love your perspective as a stand-up and as an audience observer of the Star Wars experience. Really appreciate it. You know?
Thanks for having me, man. I really, like I said, I could talk Star Wars all day. So I love it.
Where can people find you?
You could check me out at eddiepence.com. Has usually it's a good landing page for anything I got. I'm also on the Ralph Report on patreon.com 5 days a week. You can check out my other podcast, The Ramble, with comedian Jerry Rocha. We're on iTunes and Spotify and all that stuff. Like I said, just go to eddiepence.com. We'll get you everywhere you got to go.
And that's where my recording equipment decided to just stop recording. I don't know why. I don't know what happened. We had a very nice May the Force be with you, May the Force be with you, but no, it didn't capture it. Anyway, you can find Eddie at eddiepence.com. You can link to his socials. Twitter or X is at Eddie Pence, Instagram at Eddie Pence. And if you want to reach out to us, you can do so at Star Wars Mean to You. That's Star Wars Mean, the number 2 and the letter U. And that's across all social, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads. No matter how you decide to reach out to us, remember, the Force will be with you, always. Hi, this is Dave, and before we get to the show, I wanted to ask you a favor. One of our goals this year is to grow the show so that What Does Star Wars Mean to You reaches more listeners. And that's where we're asking you for help. And it's really easy. Wherever you listen to us, please hit that subscribe button. If you're liking the show, give us a 5-star rating and review on the platform you listen to us. We make a lot of fun of the algorithm and the smash that button thing, but it really does help us get noticed by new fans. And if you want to join in on the conversation, find us on social at Star Wars Mean to You. That's Star Wars Mean, the number 2 in the letter U. Now, let's chat some Star Wars.